Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the pod. My name is Heather, and who are you fellas?
Hey there, Heather. It's me, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
And it's me, Doug.
Hello.
Douglas.
What's up, guys?
How are you?
Doug, it's so great to have you. You haven't been on for a while.
It's been a while, yeah. I so very much enjoy hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be very fun.
It's going to be very fun.
Yeah.
Did you guys do anything fun this weekend or this last week? We haven't seen each other for a while, so
Yeah, no,
we
got to
catch up.
Yeah. Should I go first?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So Mario Wonder just came out. So I've been playing a bunch of Mario all weekend.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's the...
JV sounds so very interested in this.
I am interested.
Yeah.
What's the premise of this game?
So are you ready for this?
And are your
ready.
kids playing too?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. And they like it too. It's like a multiplayer game or
Nice.
multiplayer aspects. So it's been over a decade since they've released a 2D Mario game, and this is it. So this is amazing. It's a pretty big moment.
Nice.
Right now.
What's the goal? What do you have to do?
So defeat Bowser.
Okay. Does
like-
he have the princess locked up?
No, oh man, it's deep. He kind of took a
It's
wonder
deep.
flower and he transformed the whole world and he had to like save everybody.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did you see the newest Super Mario movie?
I did. Yeah,
It's so great.
it's very good. I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. I wasn't like expecting to love it as much as I did, but it was really good.
I
was a
have
really
not seen
fun
it.
movie.
I
Shocking.
know. You haven't seen a lot of movies. I am
So
certain you
true.
haven't seen Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Do you have a list of movies that you haven't seen that people say you have to watch this?
Oh, probably. It's kind of like what you said yesterday. Like, this podcast has changed my life.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I don't have time to watch that amazing, life-changing
Yeah, that's
movie.
kind of me.
Yeah.
There's a long list of them.
Oh,
yeah,
man. It's
that I've
funny.
not seen.
So Joe Powell in The Office, he's similar. He hasn't seen movies where I feel like everybody should watch this movie.
Yeah.
And he's always like, "Oh, I haven't seen that yet." And it's like, "Are you serious right now? Like that is like one of the greatest movies ever
So,
made."
what's one of the greatest movies I should see?
Oh, the Godfather trilogy. Have you seen? Any
I
of
have
those?
seen that.
Those are good.
Those are very
Those
good.
are very good.
Yeah.
Like Saving Private Ryan.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, see, Jamie, you're right. You're
I'm
tracking with
tracking
Doug's list.
right
Okay.
now. I'm tracking.
So how about some like classic like 80s movies? Have you ever seen like Never Ending Story?
No.
That's
What?
a really good one.
That is a good one.
That's a very good one.
Okay.
I'm very surprised they haven't done a remake of The Neverending Story.
I kind of hope they don't.
Yeah,
I don't feel like they could-
know. It could be kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, you would have to give it to the right person. I'd be afraid
For
Hollywood
sure.
like, hey, let's make some money. Let's
What
give
about
this
Trilith?
to Trilith.
Trilith Studio.
That's a good insight.
They could remake it.
Yeah.
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 Go ahead.
Oh, so are we doing more movies?
Sure.
Princess Bride.
I've seen that.
That's a good one.
See, look, I'm doing all right.
You're doing really good, actually. Man, the new Dune movie.
Oh, no.
That's very good.
No.
If you like
No.
sci-fi, you have to watch.
I don't really
the
like
new Dune
sci-fi,
movie.
but is Dune it's the end of the world post-apocalyptic kind of movie? Is that what it is?
Oh no, it's like
Oh, okay.
far, far future.
Oh, okay.
We're like traveling across the universe, and Earth is a distant memory, and
Yeah.
they get this planet called Arrakis that has this thing called spice.
Arrakis?
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that you're like giggly talking about it.
Yeah, I feel like such a nerd. It's a movie about like political intrigue, and they're trying to like overthrow this family, and it's a
Right
lot
up
of stuff.
your alley, Jamie.
Yeah,
Well,
it's-
that
you would
sounds
love it.
That sounds great. I'm
And
gonna look
giant sandworms.
for it. Oh yeah.
See?
Yeah,
I'm gonna look it up as soon as I get home.
You're speaking
man.
Jamie's language right now.
I think this is what I'll make a whole list of movies that you should watch, and
Okay.
then for one weekend you can just binge watch all the movies.
Then I'll,
and
Oh,
will I
that's
become will I become like you?
exactly like me.
That's a great idea because Jamie often has nothing to report from
Yeah.
his weekends.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you would give him a movie list, at least he would be able to report on that.
And the movies have to be viewable from Prime or Netflix because I don't have anything else.
I'll do my best. We'll start with the Lord of the Rings trilogy director's cut.
Director's
yeah.
cut.
Each one's
Oh
like
my
8 hours
gosh.
long.
I have not seen those, but I have seen Derek love those movies.
Oh, yeah, those are very good,
I
too.
watched those
Yeah.
with him.
I'm
So-
so excited. This is gonna be a great journey.
Yeah.
So you spent your entire weekend playing Mario.
Oh, just playing Mario and thinking about Mario.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And sort of thinking about your message every once in a while.
Oh, we had a fun chili cook-off too. We
Oh, you did? Fun.
ate too much chili.
When was that?
When was that? Friday night. Friday night.
When
Nice.
Doug is asking, he's asking our producer, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm asking the voice just out there. Yeah,
Sitting over to
it was good. It's funny eating like multiple types of chili isn't good on your stomach. I realized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they
It was worth it. Yeah.
Spicy?
Some spicy, some
Yeah.
was very good, but
Yeah.
totally worth it.
Yeah.
I love chili. Bonnie made a chicken chili this weekend.
Oh, that's cool.
That I'm having for
Well,
dinner
you're
tonight.
a
I'm very
chili
excited.
winner.
I
You're a
have
chili
made
cook-off winner.
I am a award-winning chili making chef.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, undefeated, right?
Yes.
Okay, because we haven't had another one.
Because we haven't had
since.
another one.
Well, we had one more, but I did not enter
Oh,
into
that's
the
right.
competition because I knew I was going to win again.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's a very humble approach to chili.
that you were
Yeah.
going to win again, not that someone else was going to beat you.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. You
Which
don't
will
wanna be-
tie in very nicely to the message that we'll be talking about a little bit later. Humility.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're so humble.
I'm just trying to set it up. That's all I'm doing.
That's why,
Yeah.
like big athletes, they retire early because they're like, I'm tired of winning.
You got to go out on top.
Yeah.
You got to give somebody else
Yeah.
a chance.
I
I'm
made
gonna-
chili once, and I won, and I retired.
And now you're done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jamie, what did you do this weekend?
So I got back from Atlanta Friday evening, later than I wanted.
Expected?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I mean it wasn't awful. A
stinks.
few hours later. So, but Bonnie and I have not had a chance to go out or anything in a while, and we had some gift card stuff. So we went to Riverstone Chop House for
Oh,
dinner
nice.
on Friday. That was lovely.
What did you eat?
I had a shrimp and grit, which had scallops and shrimp. with-
Just a grit?
no, there was more than one grit.
Yeah.
Oh, you said grit.
Yeah, that's like a super
shrimp
fancy
and
meal.
grit.
It's
Yeah.
like very small.
Well, you know how they do in those
tiny-
fancy restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah, a grit.
like half of a shrimp and
Right. Yep, and a quarter of a scallop. Yeah, it was really good. And then Bonnie got a roasted duck breast, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
It was very good.
Good.
And yeah, it was a great meal. Service was great. We haven't eaten in the dining room there
For a long
in
time.
years. Yeah. But it was very lovely. Had a nice night. And then yeah, Saturday just chore stuff and
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
We went down to the Outer Banks this weekend to help out with
yeah.
the Outer Banks Seafood Festival.
Yeah, how was
oh
that?
wow.
It was, I have a mixed review.
Okay.
So we were volunteering with the Crossroads organization down
Yep.
there who help people coming out or realizing recovery. So from drugs and alcohol.
Uh-huh.
They help them get jobs and find housing and all this amazing work. And so they were a part of helping with the seafood festival. So they needed a bunch of volunteers. So that's what we were there for. And it was very well attended. The layout and everything was so great. There were craft and artisan tents, and then there was like lots of food vendors and beverage vendors, and then a whole concert area. So there was live music going all day. So that
Nice.
was really fun. It was so windy
Oh.
on Saturday. I think it was like 15-mile-per-hour winds, like consistent, that
Wow.
would gust to like 20 and 25. And so these poor vendors were like losing their tents.
Wow.
Crossroads actually lost their tent. They're just like trying to interact with customers and like holding their
Right.
tents down. And it was the windiest. And being out in the wind is exhausting.
Yeah.
It is just, it was crazy. And then there was some other stuff like with the organization of how they were doing things that was like, I think this could be done better. But it was really great. It was so well attended. I hope it was like
Yeah.
more successful than they thought it would be.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were, because of where it was on the sound side, there's no parking. And so they were busing people
Oh, wow.
over from wherever it was that they could park. And so the buses, like, they just kept, there was lots and
Yeah.
lots of people there, which is great.
Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah, it was fun. It was a fun afternoon. Plus, we got to hang out with some of our
Yeah.
good friends and go to some good restaurants and stuff
Nice.
down there. And yeah, it was really good.
Does this
good.
happen every year, like the seafood
I
festival?
guess we've never done it before. The friends that we were doing it with have done it for, I think they volunteered, they said last year, and they've gone to it a couple of times. So yeah,
That's
it happens
cool.
every year.
Yeah, because like I know like off season down there gets really quiet. That would be really cool just to bring people out and
Yeah.
have something to do
Yeah.
when the tourist season is kind of done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool.
So and it's lovely in the Outer Banks, even in the fall.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. So all right, well, let's get into our message from Sunday. Doug, you brought this message to us, and we're in week 4 of Joyride.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to open up today's conversation with our first talk about it question from this week. What is your guys' best or worst road trip experience?
Yeah, I'll go the worst one. I have a best one too, but
Okay,
the worst
you
one.
can share both.
Yeah, the worst one was I was in high school and my dad had moved to the Albany, New York area and got out of school on Friday, and me and Gary Cataranek were going to drive up and spend the weekend at my dad's. And it was later at night. Gary was driving my car, which was a 79 Chevette, and he hydroplaned on a bridge, and the car starts spinning and slammed into the cable guardrail, which ripped the side of my car to shreds.
Gosh.
It was the worst.
Was
Especially
it
when
like on a
it's-
hill or something?
No,
Okay.
we're going across a bridge, and he just started spinning. And I'm like, Gary, he goes, I'm trying, and that was it. It was
man.
terrible. So the good news was he was a auto body repair student.
Okay.
So for the rest of the year, he worked on fixing my car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did
so-
it get repaired?
Yeah, it did. In
Okay.
fact, he had repaired it. My car had been the project the year before.
Okay.
And it was looking really good.
Yeah.
And then he wrecked it. And then he did it again. So
What color was it?
it was a bright blue. So the whole time I owned that car, it was in the process of being put back together. Like
Yeah.
every day he'd come back from school and it would have another patch of primer on it.
Okay.
And it would
So
just
you would,
change
like,
every day.
Turn it in the morning.
So
they'd
I would
work
drive to
on
school.
it, and then you would drive it home.
I would drive to school, then he would take it to the auto body thing, and then he'd bring it back, and then I'd drive home.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we did that for 2 years.
I
That
love
car
that
was
story.
a work in progress.
That's
okay.
funny.
What's your best?
Best was hands down the motorcycle trip,
Yeah.
coast to coast.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
30 days, 10,000 miles. It was incredible.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's awesome.
Doug?
I would have to say, like, I don't know, probably my worst might also be the funniest.
Okay.
I think I've shared this story before, but we were driving home from Lynchburg one time, and I was driving,
Oh,
and I'm very bad at directions.
I know this one.
And this is before like GPS or anything.
Yeah.
You could buy like the GPS, but they were very expensive.
Right.
Like
The
before phones.
Tom-toms.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Yeah,
Garmin's.
those are very important back then. I
Nate
never
threw a
had one.
tom-tom out of his car one time because he got so mad.
That's awesome.
Also, when we couldn't afford to just be throwing tom-toms
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, because like they were crazy expensive back then.
I could
right?
see that.
Oh, man.
I would do something like that if I got mad enough. I could totally see that.
So we're driving back from Lynchburg, and there's like a weird place where, and I'm going to say this, and I'm probably wrong. Where 460 turns into 360, and then some other weird stuff happens. And I'm driving, and Rachel fell asleep, and I'm like, I got this. And all the weird things change, and I'm not paying attention at all. And then before I know it, we're driving in like what looks like a small town with like a cobblestone road,
Okay.
like actual like bricks on the
Yeah.
road. And I'm like, I've never seen any of this before. This is something you would notice. I have
Right.
no idea where I am. So I woke up Rachel, and she wakes up, and she's just shocked as to where we are.
Yeah.
Like the town that time forgot. It looks like
Yeah.
horses and
Did
whatnot.
you say you felt like you drove back in time?
Yeah, like I was so lost, I went back in time.
yeah.
That's the joke. And so we had to call Rachel's dad, and we're like, we have no idea where we are. And he says, "Well, what are you looking at right now?" And we said, "Well, I see a stoplight and I see the sun." He's like, "Here's exactly where you are. Take a left and then take a right, and you'll get back on the interstate." And we did.
Wow.
Somehow, like we gave this guy like 3 road marks, one of them being like the sun probably, and he knew exactly where we were.
That's hilarious.
It was amazing. This guy has like internal GPS. Like his
Wow.
name
Yeah.
should have been Tom Tom.
Yeah.
And then he is like the
Right,
first Tom
right.
Tom. But yeah, helped us get back home. It was great.
That's
So it was
amazing. I don't have that skill. When Bonnie calls me and says, "Tell me where to go,"
Yeah.
I'm like, she
What
says,
does your GPS say?
Well, yeah, now she does the
Yeah.
GPS, but back in the day, it was always like, "I see this sign," like, but I have no idea
Yeah.
which direction you're going. I mean, I can't help you.
yeah. But in the moment,
That's
like,
amazing.
You're panicked, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm panicking. I'm like, what do you see? Man, I see
The sun.
thousands of things. I don't know
Yeah.
what do I even say.
A horse.
Yeah, there's a horse and there's a man standing right here. and there's a lady who looks like she's very angry. Oh, that's Rachel. Okay, so
Yeah.
it was very nerve wracking. But looking back, it was very funny, and yeah, probably one of my favorite road trips.
One of my worst road trips was also coming back from Lynchburg.
Uh-huh.
I had taken my sister to, I think it was her sophomore year of college, like move in. We left right after church. We were still over at Peak Trail. So we would stack all of the chairs in the auditorium. I forget what was happening, but we would do that after service. So I had left my phone in the back of one of the chairs.
That's
and
not
like
good.
left for school, drive out. Carissa's driving her car. I'm driving my car full of stuff. And when we get there, I realize I don't have my phone. And so Carissa texts Nate and says, Heather doesn't have her phone, but she's leaving now, just so that he would kind of know like where I am. And
if you want to go over to Peak Trail and look in the pockets of 500
Right.
chairs.
Yeah.
Have at it. So I start heading back, and I don't know what happened, where I got turned around, because I generally have a good sense of direction, and I've been out there many times, so I don't really know what happened. But I end up going off on like these back roads to get home, and I end up like I'm like getting a little bit nervous because there's no one around me. It's like
Maybe there's like
single-lane
a
roads.
Bermuda Triangle
I think
somewhere
there
out
is.
there.
Yeah, it's right
Yeah.
where 460 turns into
Yeah.
360.
And
It's
this
just
is
horrible.
what happened. So no one. I haven't seen anyone for a long time, and I've been driving now for like 4 hours. It's ridiculous.
That's way too long.
I
Yeah.
do not know
Yeah.
where I am. But it's like dark, and there's just like random houses every once in a while, and I was like, that feels really unsafe, so I'm not gonna stop. I'm like hoping that I continue to have gas in my tank. Like it was just
Wow.
crazy. So finally, like I'm driving down the road and I see brake lights, but like lots and lots of brake lights, and I was like, what is happening? And before I know it, I am driving onto a ferry.
Oh no.
And I don't know where this ferry is going to take me. But I was already in line, and I didn't know where I was, and so I just get on the ferry. I
You
didn't
just
know
get on the ferry?
I didn't know if it was going to cost me any money, nothing.
Yeah.
So then I get off the ferry. It takes me across the water. I knew I had to cross the water at some point to get here. So I like take it across, and here it's the Scotland Jamestown ferry, which takes you across the James River.
Oh, yeah.
So I ended up in like Surrey.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of realized where I was. But again, it was like late at night. I think it took me like 6.5 hours to get home
Oh my
when I
gosh.
like
It's
walked in the
twice
door.
as long as it should.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nate was like, "Where have you been?"
My
It's like,
gosh.
I really don't know, but I think I was here.
Wow.
That's funny.
So yeah, that was, if I had had a person with me, I would have thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I was by myself, I was not feeling
I'm trying
very
to
amused.
envision driving onto a ferry that I don't know where it's going and
Well,
being like, I'm
I
just
figured
going to see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what an adventure, right?
It was
an
yeah,
adventure.
This is great.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I love a good road trip.
That sounds like a great one.
Well, Doug, you shared that the section of Philippians that we're in at this point
I'm sorry,
is
that was
that's
my
okay.
throat's a little
It's all
coffee
right.
today.
Is actually a hymn. So I would just love to know, you guys, what role does music or poetry play in your lives? Like, how does it affect your mindset?
Oh, man, I love listening to music all the time. Like if I'm washing dishes or just driving or even just like writing messages, like the music I listen to helps me get into like a state of mind where I can actually either do this well or kind of really focus or laser focus in. So music is huge. I'm always listening to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be able to multitask like that, but anymore, if I'm listening to music with words, I can't
You can't do it.
work on stuff. So I listen to the Pause app. I
Uh-huh.
found
Yeah, that's good.
I found the music, the guy who behind
Oh,
the music
yeah.
of that, and I
Uh-huh.
listen to that. It gets me into in a certain place. But I was going to mention about the hymn because you talked about it, and one thing that I just thought was worth mentioning. So Philippians was written in about 62 AD figured Jesus, the resurrection events somewhere around 33, so less than 30 years after the resurrection. But this hymn is something that Paul is quoting that's apparently well known.
Yeah.
And so that dates this hymn to be probably within a decade of the events of the resurrection, which is just pretty remarkable. So, and as you said, it's so rich with theology and what the church was already teaching, and this is before any scripture had been written. So yeah, like the significance of that hymn just from a theological early church, what was being taught way before any folklore could have worked its way into the teachings. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, because like skeptics like Bart Ehrman and people like him, they'll say that early Christians developed and kind of brought in the deity of Christ over hundreds of years.
Yes.
But this like literally goes against all of that.
It does.
Like this is early
it's very
theology.
significant. Yes.
So it's weird because like I've never heard him explain that away.
Yeah.
Like I've heard him defend his point that like, yeah, over hundreds of years we turned Jesus into something that he never was, but like this is irrefutable proof that this early theology was so important to the church and was widely passed around.
And the deity of Christ, that Jesus is God himself, is right there. I mean, it's one of the strongest texts on the deity of Christ there is, and it's one of the oldest texts that we have. Like we don't even know exactly when it originated, but within 30 years, less than 30 years of the resurrection itself.
Yeah.
So why do you think that poetry and music is so central to like our Christian faith? I mean, we use music in almost every worship gathering that we have. And that's been going on for
thousands of years.
Because why is that?
The Jewish people, the temple, that they had all the musicians and all that. So like it's been going on forever. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why music is central to worship, but it is. I know like for like this hymn, part of it was people were primarily illiterate, and so it was a way to pass on truth. It was a way for people to
like helps
get
with
theology,
memory.
help them
does.
remember and know what their teachings were. So I think that was part of it. There's probably more to it than that, though.
Yeah, and I think it was just that. It's something that would be easy to pass along.
Yeah.
Like you look at other poems from like the ancient world, like the Iliad and Homer's Odyssey and all that. They're all written in like poetic form because it would have been easy to memorize. Yeah. And back then, writing was so difficult and so expensive. You had to write something that you could share with somebody else, something that they would listen to and memorize and pass on to somebody else as well. And it was just like ease of use. Yeah. But also it's catchy and it's something that you would think about throughout the day. Like in the same way we kind of latch onto songs here today, I can listen to a song and think about it, and it helps me to feel something. Yeah. If it's something that's encouraging, man, I feel encouraged all day long. I love like as I'm driving around listening to worship, it really brightens the rest of my day. Yeah. If I find myself in a sad mood and I listen to something that's like sad or whatever, it kind of meets me where I am and it helps me to experience that as well. So it's just something that's memorable and impacts us. And I think God created us to respond to music in a really exciting way as well.
And it's storytelling. Like you can learn so much about like people through their songwriting, and I think that's what can be so fascinating too. And it is so interesting how impactful it is, even if you say like you're not a music lover or it's not something that's like part of your everyday. Like when people hear songs, it triggers memories, it triggers feelings.
It creates community.
Yeah, it
like
really
people
does.
Who have a shared, you go to a lot of concerts, there's a sense of community because we all love the same music. Yeah. That's kind of powerful.
Well, you went to Switchfoot and that was amazing.
It
right?
was amazing.
Yeah.
It was like a ginormous worship concert. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was one of the most fun shows I've been to. Jeremy doesn't even like going to concerts. He thinks it's a waste of money, and he had a great time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's how good it was.
And it's cool too. Like I think something we see happening in the church, in the early church, but also as the church progressed, like it's not wrong to take something that's important to culture and changing it to fit like a Christian theme. So you see like Martin Luther,
Oh, yeah.
he would take like bar songs
Yeah.
and take away the lyrics, so they're all drinking songs,
Yep.
and would replace them with Christian
Yeah.
lyrics because he's trying to reach an audience who already is in this mindset. They would have understood the tune.
Yep.
And it's like, let me change
They
the
would
lyrics.
have remembered the tune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see Paul doing the same thing. Like he'll
Yep.
take things that are Roman ideas or Greek concepts, like Caesar is Lord, and he would say, no, Jesus is Lord.
Well,
or,
even in the household codes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he took those. They were all very familiar with him, and then he undermined them in such a way that it was super memorable.
yeah. So you take something that's important to culture, you change it just enough and say, well, I'm going to change the way that you view things and let you know who the true king is or who the true person of worship is. And it connects and it relates to people where they
Yeah.
are, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And we see it happening today as well. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we'll think like, oh man, Christians are stealing things from culture. And like, no, we're just repurposing it and we're making sure that the glory goes to where it needs to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. So you asked us to consider an important question yesterday. And the question is this: am I doing this to build something for myself, or is it out of love for someone else? So how does being aware of our motives challenge us to walk in the humility that this hymn is challenging us to do?
Yeah, I think it's just the motive behind why we love will change how we treat the other person. So like if I'm meeting somebody's needs so that they will in turn meet my needs, it'll completely change not just the reason why I love this person, but will change how I love them as well. It'll like I'm way less likely to point out the fact that I met their needs. Like, hey, did you see I cleaned the whole house today? Or did you see I did this really cool thing and I served all these people? I'm not willing to brag about it, but instead I'm just going to do it because the other person is deserving of love. So like if I can change my motive, it changes not just the thought behind it, but it changes even the actions itself. So I think that's just like in my life, it's a really important kind of heart check to check my motives, to question why I'm doing something. And if I'm doing it for the wrong reason, then I have to change the internal so that the external will change as well. And for me, it's been a really important kind of thought experiment in my own life, and hopefully it was challenging for others as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was super challenging.
Especially when you consider your chili cook-off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I think our natural tendency is to do things to get, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is our natural tendency. And there are certain principles like we talk about, you know, when you serve others, you yourself are blessed. Like God's work, he's designed it that way that when you bless someone else, you receive a blessing in return. Like it's part of this reciprocity kind of principle that God has. But I liked the challenge on the motive. And a lot of times we don't even know our motives. And I think sometimes you can start with bad motive, like do the right things for maybe the wrong motives. And maybe eventually you kind of learn to do it for the right motives. So I've been listening to a devotional the last 2 weeks or so on forgiveness. And you know, the quote, I can't remember who it was, but like holding on to bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we forgive, and we've taught this. Like I've taught this anyway. Is like sometimes you should forgive someone just for your own sake, right? Because it's destroying you, hanging on to something. So you should do it. Forgive that other person for your own personal benefit. Well, on this devotional that I was listening to, they said there's been a lot of research done on this, and if you forgive for your sake, the benefits of forgiveness, and there's a bunch of them, like health, emotional, you know, there's all kinds of things. The benefits of forgiveness are shorter in duration. And if you do them because I am an offender who knows how good it is myself to be forgiven, and I know the relief that comes when I am forgiven for something that I have done wrong. So out of love for this other person and altruism of this other person, I'm going to forgive them because I am a fellow offender who has experienced forgiveness. If you do it for that motive, the benefits of your forgiveness endure a lot longer.
That's
Now, I don't
so
really interesting.
interesting.
Super interesting. Now, I don't know all the research behind it,
Yeah.
but there's a guy who John Ortberg's been interviewing throughout this thing, and he's a researcher on forgiveness. That's what he's done for
That's
a living.
an
Oh my
amazing
gosh.
scientist.
How amazing is
Yeah.
that? Yeah, it's been incredible. But that made me. That was 3-4 days ago that I
Yeah.
heard that devotional. But it made me think of when you said that yesterday. I was like, man, that's a lot like
Yeah.
that. So like it's super challenging. Like, yeah, you should forgive because you'll benefit from it. But you should also forgive simply because human beings need forgiveness, including me.
self.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Like whatever that action is, if it's truly selfless, it's
Yeah.
I'm doing this because the other person is deserving of whatever it is, like love or forgiveness or
Yep.
grace. And I really do. I think that mindset, it puts us in a whole different frame
Right.
of just understanding who that person is and who we are too.
Yeah.
And it is that humbling process that happens
Yeah.
through that. So yeah, that's really interesting.
I
very
think
cool.
the motives too are so interesting, and why I like the Enneagram so much, because it's based around our motives. Like each number, each personality or character traits that are within the Enneagram number are based on how we are motivated. And that's like a totally different approach to the personality typing than a lot of
Yeah.
other things. So yeah, being mindful of our motives, I think, is so important to understand like our own mental, emotional, and spiritual health, and to be able to make some changes.
Yeah.
It's hard to discern your motives.
It is.
It really is.
It really is, right?
Yeah.
So
Because we
thinking
want to
about-
think the best of ourselves.
Yeah.
So think about Enneagram. Like I'm a 9 on the scale. And for me, like I guess my personality is a little bit more laid back and easygoing. So a lot of times it might look like it's easy for me, but internally that's the motive, right? And I have to constantly question myself, like, am I faking this?
Yeah.
Is this easy simply because of my personality?
Yeah.
But I'm actually intentionally loving this person.
Yeah.
And some people might even say, like, I've never seen you upset. I promise you internally these
Yeah.
things are happening all the time. And that's that gut check. Perception is one thing, but like the reality of what's actually happening in our lives,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's where that life change can actually happen. And that's where true humility exists. It's not what somebody sees in you, it's what's actually there.
Yeah.
And that's so hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated learning more about the ancient view of the cross.
Yeah.
And how people understood the punishment of crucifixion. So how does that differ from our modern view of the cross? And why is it important to allow the ancient view to broaden our understanding of it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the graffiti piece.
It was,
Yeah.
The
Uh-huh.
what was the guy's name?
Where'd you find that? That
So-
was very cool.
I was listening to a podcast like who knows how long ago,
Yeah.
and they had mentioned that, and it was always kind of in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So when I was writing the message, I was like, "That's right, it's the Alexa Minos." I think it's actually titled Alexa Minos Graffito, which is I guess Greek for
Yeah.
Alexa Minos graffiti. I was like, I got to find this thing, so I just Googled online, and it came up all over the
Nice.
place. So it's like dated to like 200 AD roughly. It was etched into the side of a house. And it was mocking this poor dude, Alexamenos,
Yeah.
saying Alexamenos worships his god.
Graffiti was a lot harder work back then.
It was. The artists weren't nearly as good as the ones today either. It was very poorly drawn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just like a really interesting insight into what the common idea back then was. And it's why a lot of Jewish followers don't see Jesus as the Messiah. They would say, our Messiah would not have died on a cross.
Yeah.
It would have been shameful. And they cannot, within their mindset and their theology, they don't understand that even being a possibility.
Yeah.
But for us, we understand the significance of it and the importance of it, that he endured the pain of the cross, but even the shame of the cross
Yeah.
for us. I think it was Hebrews 12 that talks about that. He endured the shame or scorned the shame so that we could be brought back to God.
Yeah.
So it's so challenging. I think in our culture, it's different because like in their culture, it was honor shame, and shame was the worst thing you could do, right? Our culture is very individualistic. So it's not necessarily honor shame, it's more so like I define what is honor and I define what's shame personally for me. A lot of times we disregard family traditions. We move away from previous generations just because of the way our culture operates. For them, that was like impossible. You can't distance yourself from family. You can't remove the generational kind of traditions. That was everything to them. So if you brought shame to you, you brought shame to everybody connected to you.
Yeah.
That's why stories like the prodigal son, they're so shocking, right?
Yeah.
This one brother or son leaves and waste his inheritance. They would have been like, oh my,
A shameful thing.
yeah, oh
Right.
my gosh, like how could a parent forgive that? And then they say, well, God forgives that. And it shows the significance of his love. And the cross is the same thing. Like, who would die a shameful death? God. And he did it for us.
Yeah.
And just like changing your perspective on that, instead of saying, well, it's shameful, it can't be the Messiah, it's like, oh my gosh, the Messiah was willing to go through
Right.
this and endure even that for me. It's like the most radical example of love. And for us, I think to view it within their culture like that, it's so
Yeah.
very important and helps us to fully appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah. Andy Stanley talks a little bit about the significance of the cross in Roman culture being a sign of Rome's strength
Yeah.
and their dominance, because that's how they dealt with their enemies. And then, fast forward 2,000 years, the cross is a symbol of God's love for us, and Caesar is a dog food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
like
funny
it's-
is that, right?
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a turn of events.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, Jamie actually shared a quote from Martin Luther, something along the lines of God doesn't need our good works, but our neighbor does.
Yeah.
So how does that play into your teaching that there should be tangible signs of our salvation?
Oh yeah, so that passage is like one of my favorites to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And when I first read it, it looks like it's like workspace, right? Work out your own salvation. So man, I need to work on this or show a proof of this. But it's if we show the results of our salvation, which another translation words it, I think it's a better understanding of what it shows. And Paul is telling the church, like, you're going to be afraid of Rome and you're going to be afraid of what your neighbor might bring, right? So if your neighbor finds out you're a Christian, they might do more than just etch graffiti on the side of your house.
Right.
You might be arrested, you might be crucified. Persecution was a very real thing for them. So he's saying, don't be afraid and tremble at Rome. Instead, have this healthy fear and respect for God, and show the results of your salvation. So be open about what Jesus is doing. And it's really cool. So like if we fully embrace Jesus' love for us, what are the results of that? And how does that change my life? How does that change the way I treat others? Would I be so open to even like proclaim who Jesus is? If Jesus is Lord, that should change who I am, the way I live.
Yeah.
So I think that's what he's saying. And back then, if there was any hint that you were a Christian, like there's a crazy neighbor who's following this
Right.
crucified rabbi, like it could be bad news for you and your family. And going back to honor shame, would you be afraid to bring shame to your family?
Right.
I mean, Jesus even says that I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword, and to split apart like families, not in a negative way, but just if you follow me, there's going to be division.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to embrace that even? Would you be willing to step into that? Would you be shy away from it? Show the results of salvation in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. You also shared a Dallas Willard quote, which I saw lots of people posting on
Yeah,
social
I did
media
too.
yesterday.
Good quote.
The quote is, I think a mature Christian is someone who is very difficult to offend.
Yeah.
So do y'all agree with that statement, and why or why not?
So I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and Sky Jathani shared that. And I forgot the context of why he shared it, but they were just talking about how easily Christians are offended nowadays. And he said Dallas Willard at a social gathering said a mature Christian is somebody who is almost impossible to offend. And it really challenged me. I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, that is so good. And I find myself so easily offended. So it really forced me to do like a heart check and find out why. So I've been processing it ever since.
Yeah.
But I think he was right.
Yeah.
It's certainly a sign of, I mean, if it may not be the
End all be all.
yeah, the end all be all, but it certainly is a characteristic of someone who is mature in their faith. And I quoted Willard a ton during the September series.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
a really good quote.
Yeah.
He was very quotable.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really was. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of truth to it. And what a sad commentary on our culture today,
Yeah.
because everyone's eager to be offended. You know, people are looking for opportunities to be offended today. And I think you explained a little bit yesterday around that. Like, if you're easily offended, it's because you are the most important thing to you. And, if there's humility, if there's selflessness, if there's even a strong faith that if I'm offended and I need justice, that God is the one who will provide the justice. Like, I don't need to strive for that myself. That shows great maturity and understanding of who God is. And I've become less, which certainly is a mark of maturity of faith. So yeah, what a great quote.
Yeah. Like, even to the point, like, if somebody were to graffiti the side of my house, like, Doug worships his God, would I be offended by that? I think I would be. But why? Like, I love what you just said. If I need justice, that's God who will find out the way to do that. What I'm commanded to do is to pray for my enemies and to love them and to empathize with where they're at.
Yep.
And I think that understanding, like, somebody who's not easily offended is somebody who loves their enemies. And if something were to happen to them, they're thinking to themselves, God forgive them because they don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
In the same way that Jesus prayed for the people who gambled for his clothes while he was on the cross.
Yeah.
God forgive them because, like, they're doing this thing now, but they don't fully understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
If they only understood, then
They wouldn't do it.
They would be
Yeah.
worshiping at his feet instead of gambling for his clothing. So there's a level there of, like, just compassion.
Yeah.
This person just offended me, but they don't really understand what's happening. If they knew who Jesus was, they would not have said that, or they would not have done that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just so important and a way to change our perspective as well.
I think it's worth putting out there too that you are not inviting people to come graffiti your house.
I don't know if it's good. Go for it. If it's good looking graffiti.
If you can tag real well, you can go tag Doug's house.
When I was growing up, like, graffiti was like the thing. So we were always like drawing in our little sketchbooks, and we all had our tag names and stuff. So it was
What
very
was your
fun.
tag name?
I had multiple ones. One was Sign, SYNE. One was
Bug Dance.
Yeah, Vug Dance. That was pre all that. We had a bunch. Me and my cousin would always, like, in our minds, we're like, oh, we're going to be graffiti artists one day.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to get in trouble. So we never really went down that path.
Good choice.
Good choices, guys.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about studying scripture is how you can read a passage over and over. And with each reading, the Holy Spirit kind of helps you take away something new or understand the passage and what it's saying a little more deeply. So as y'all read through this hymn found in Philippians 2, what fresh perspective have you gained on God's character?
That's really good. To me, I think it's just like an amazing reminder as to what Jesus has done for me. And it really is, like, to me, it is that process of showing the results of my salvation. If I woke up every single day and reminded myself, Jesus is God, he humbled himself, and I should do the same, and he died on the cross for me, so he rescued me, and I should be so excited and joyful about that today should be an expression of Jesus' love for me. Like, if I woke up every day and told myself that, I promise you my days would be different. Like, my selfishness would be way lower. My willingness to fight for my own agenda would be non-existent.
Yeah.
If I reminded myself of what Jesus did for me. I think we were talking about this the other day. Like, spiritual maturity isn't necessarily like, I understand the deep intricacies of God's word, but it's, I understand Jesus' love. That's maturity. Like, I understand Jesus' love for me, and that's helping me to be a better example of him. And it's so simple, but it's so difficult, and there's depth to it.
I mean, just imagine an entire church of people who are not demanding their own rights, but deferring to someone else, humbling themselves, even to the point of, like, discomfort. Like, how that would dramatically change a community of faith. And imagine if everyone who said they followed Jesus started doing that. Like, an entire community would be, it would be transformed almost overnight.
Yeah. I was reading a book recently by Preston Sprinkle, and he said the defining characteristic of the early church was they loved their enemies. Like, it was that.
Yeah.
Nobody else was doing that. Like, Rome had an amazing time of peace when Jesus was walking the earth. And Caesar was saying, like, man, I am Lord, follow me, and I'll give you all that you want, and you'll be taken care of. And they were using, like, violence to get their way and stuff like that. And Christians come up on the scene, and they love their enemies, something that was so countercultural, it made no sense. And that was the defining factor. And like you said, what if all Christians tomorrow did that? And we
Yeah.
loved our enemies, and we weren't so willing to fight for our own agenda, but we were so willing to listen to the other person. Yeah, it would change everything
to
overnight.
the point of being. I mean, Jesus does it to the point of death.
Yes, yeah,
Yep.
I mean,
to the point of death. And then we say, justice is not mine, but justice is the
Yeah.
Lord's, and He's gonna find the best way of dealing with this. But
Yeah.
I just love.
yeah,
It's so weird, and it makes no sense.
yeah.
But it's something that
transformational.
it'll transform everything.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we've got time for today. And until next time, we hope that you guys will share this out on your social media feeds. Let everyone else know that you're listening to the Made for Mondays podcast. And then invite them to join you at church on Sunday. We have services at 9 and 10:45. We're continuing our joyride. And this Sunday, following services at 12 to 2, we have our fall festival. It is going to be a fabulous time for the whole family. There's food trucks, hay rides, trunk or treat, you name it, it's probably going to be there. So should you. Bring some friends with you to that. We would love to see you and your guests on Sunday. So thanks for being here, friends. Go and be love.